Is Singapore property market set to crash in 2025? Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and it is the weekend again. I just came back from viewings and interacted with a lot of buyers in the market as well. So I thought of talking about this today because I heard a lot of people saying this as well. So is Singapore property market going to crash? We have seen that earlier this year in 2025, we see a lot of bad news in the job market. For example, the Ministry of Manpower has announced that 3,300 retrenchment has happened in Q1 2025. The resident unemployment rate also rose. Tech companies like Meta, Microsoft, TikTok, Dyson axed about 13,000 jobs globally, and Singapore offices are affected as well. HSBC, Goldman Sachs follows. They are laying off staff in Singapore, and the latest Jetstar will be closing down their operations in Singapore and will happen by 31st July 2025. On top of that, our leaders also warn us that the trade tariffs will to be felt in Singapore. In fact, MAS cautions that Singapore's income and demand will be affected. They say 55% of our US-bound exports are vulnerable, with GDP growth forecast to be 2% to even 0%. So with all this looming on the horizon and what has been happening in the job market, do you think that the perfect storm is brewing for the Singapore property market? If you are interested in this topic and you think that your friends will benefit from this kind of news, hit the like and share button so that this video will reach out to more people like you. When unemployment rates rises, those once high-paying jobs disappear and people naturally tighten their belts, watching spending, save more money, and cut back on a lot of unnecessary things. In fact, these are what MNCs and other companies are doing already, and that contribute to a receding economy, and then the cycle will continue. Those were the time where jobs were lost. I think many will remember the Asian financial crisis that happened in 1997, as well as the US subprime period during the 2008. Those were the period where jobs are lost and the recession led the property prices to plunge. But the question is, what is happening today? The property market will definitely be affected in today's market. In fact, we see launches being sold below the level where the developers would like them to be. But we have to ask ourselves, does that mean that the property market will crash? Let's flip it over and weigh the other side of the story. Of course, as a property agent myself, I cannot say that the property market will crash lah. But on a more serious note, whether the property market will crash is not determined by only one agent saying it will crash, or even the one property agency saying that it will crash, but rather the collective behavior of the people in the market will determine whether the market will crash or not. So let's dive deeper into how the market is behaving right now. First and foremost, I just want to put this as an opening. Well, trade war between US and China is nothing new. We have seen it in the first term of Donald Trump's administration. However, I would say that this time round is very different. The steps taken by the US is pretty extreme, so we really do not know what will happen and how it will further affect the market. But if you look back to the last trade war period and we ask ourselves, if we have bought a property back then, would we be better off in the next 3 to 5 years? But coming back to what is really happening in today's market, since 2023, our government has already levied 60% ABSD on most of the foreigners who are coming into Singapore to buy residential properties. This has effectively kept the hot money out of the market. That means today's demand in Singapore's property market is driven by real demand of the residents. And on top of that, we have the TDSR framework since 2013. That is 12 years of prudent financing in the property market as well. So if you are not sure what is the TDSR framework, in a nutshell, right now, you can only use 55% of your monthly income to sustain your total debts. That means your vehicle loan, personal loan, credit cards, and mortgage loan. And after we talk about the demand being a real demand, we look at the supply in the market right now. What we are seeing is that the government is putting out more land for sale, seemingly that they are playing catch up to the demand that needs the land to build more houses to probably cool off the market a little bit. We have seen land like in the Bayshore outskirts area going as high as $1,388 per square foot per plot ratio for the land cost, as well as the more recent lakeside land plot at $1,132 per square foot per plot ratio. All these are actually screaming something in everyone's ear. Is it really sustainable? Is Singapore's Singapore's property market just up and up and up. And does that mean that the Singapore market won't crash? I'm not coming here to say that the Singapore market won't crash. In fact, quite the contrary, I want to point out there are also land plots that do not have any bids or even receive lower than desired bids, and eventually the government rejected the bid and kept the land for future use. So is the property market that hot? Well, the answer is no. However, let's look at something interesting. Singapore millennials are inheriting significant amount of wealth. In fact, this is being reported that Singapore's millennials are on track to be the wealthiest generation. It's called the Great Wealth Transfer. It is estimated that around 118 billion going to our millennials. So with this kind of wealth transfer, will our future generation be able to afford housing? That's one question that we always hear in the market right now, that Singapore property market is getting more and more expensive. Can the future generation actually afford? Well, for this, I have my own personal opinion, which reminds me of the first time ever when I was a rather new property agent. I saw the first ever Singapore HDB transacted above $1 million. And that was transacted by one of our friends in the industry. And I still remember that HDB was in Queenstown and it went on the news. But fast forward to recent years, we see almost every corner of Singapore has a $1 million HDB. In fact, it goes above 1.5 and 1.7 million for a HDB today. So why am I sharing this story? It's because I think that hindsight is always 2020. We are always saying that it is impossible for a certain property to go to a certain price. However, such beliefs has been broken once and again. So if you ask me, will our future generation be able to afford a roof over their head? My answer is a definite yes, because we have the HDB and because we have BTOs and because we have an effective government, in my opinion. But however, will the private property market be ever increasing? Well, this depends on policies, but as of now, how I see it is the market will definitely be softened with the high uncertainty in the market right now, as well as the slew of supply coming into the market. I think buyers going forward in 2025 and 2026 may have a good chance to enter the market. And talking about millennials or the younger generation, I think it's also worth mentioning that they are not just inheriting a great amount of wealth, they are also being exposed to financial literacy much earlier. In fact, if you look at the Singapore property market, buyers are getting younger. That means that the younger generation are actually looking into buying properties at a much earlier age, which gives them a longer runway to build their property wealth. And of course, they are also looking at other financial vehicles that will bring their wealth to the next level as well. So to sum it all up, financial prudence is high with the TDSR framework and the ABSD keeping all buyers in check of their financial health. And as a property agent on the ground, I see that there are more supply in the CCR region coming into the market, which means that there may be an opportunity for you to enter into a premium property at a more affordable price range. As well as there are a few RCR and OCR properties that is worth taking a look at, because I think their price tag will also be very attractive. Amidst all these uncertainties, I do feel that there will be a lot of opportunities for people who are ready. And like what the famous investors say, be greedy when others are in fear and be fearful when others are greedy. I think this is the perfect time for you to plan and execute a property strategy that will give you the lift in your property wealth that you are looking for. Of course, if you need help in crunching your financial numbers or evaluating properties, feel free to DM me and I will be happy to help you with it. I upload property content like this weekly. So if you like this kind of content and you feel that this kind of content will help you make more informed decisions, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and remember, turn on the notification bell so that my uploads will come into your mailbox and you will not miss a single episode. And lastly, I will leave you with this. Our Singapore property market is driven by supply and demand as well as our GDP. So keep track, be thoughtful, and own it with Ron. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.